And we are live. I've been absolutely buzzing to do this interview. Basically, since you were cut from the UFC, I knew that we were going to be doing this interview again, and I knew it was just a matter of time. And I was just visualizing the day that I could say, "This is Rhys McKee, your former Cage Warriors champion and UFC fighter." How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels good every single time I hear it. A lot of work, like we had a lot of conversation about, coming out of the UFC and what I had to do.
Yeah.
So to be in the position now where we can kind of say like, we're back now, is it's amazing, it's powerful and it's motivating and it's all the good stuff that goes along with it.
I don't know if there's ever been anybody with like a harder path. The fights you had that led up to you being cut, the kind of way back, you really had some really tough fights. Like just looking back on the fights that made you a champion. You obviously had the fight with Alex when you first came back to Cage Warriors, and that was a phenomenal fight. But then Justin Burlinson had already been on Contenders series. He's such a top prospect. They're having him back on Contenders, which I'm really chuffed about. But you two were two of the top prospects outside of the UFC, pitted against each other. And in Belfast, the walkouts were legendary. The fight was incredible. Like that was a huge fight in itself to make you the champ.
Yeah, like yeah, what a night that was. Like, when I remember I didn't like the idea of that fight because we were two young guys that very much like not the start of our career, but like kind of about to hit the pinnacle of our carear, like in
Yeah.
terms of where we went. But you know what? It was I remember the day I got offered that fight, talking to my coaches, and it was like, dog eat dog,
Yeah.
another lamb to slaughter, and that was my approach. It was like if it's not him, it's me, or if it's not me, it's him. I'm not sure what's the
Yeah.
right way to use that, but so yeah, it was, but it was a good fight, and it was one worthy of Belfast. I missed out on the chance to headline Belfast a few years ago,
Yeah.
um, due to that whole other thing. So it was nice for me to get that, and it was a fight that deserved to be in Belfast, and yeah, it was good.
It was yeah, it was one for the ages. It wasn't just a good fight, it was incredible. And it was one that I felt like didn't deserve a loser. Like to your point, I loved you both going into that fight. I didn't feel like his stock went down because it was such a good fight. And obviously he's gonna get another chance at Contenders, which chuffed about for him, but it was like so worthy of, like a championship belt. Like you fully earned the gold on that night, and then you had to defend it against a UFC vet, which I just always think is when Cage Warriors champs defend against someone who's been in the UFC, I think you're really proving your kind of props and your minerals. And Jimmy had been on such a great run, and I just, for someone to make him quit on the stool, like he's just not that kind of guy. Like what you did, I just think is phenomenal.
Yeah, like, and it's funny because I always, from a young guy, wanted a UFC veteran in my
Mm,
locker. I always said I want to fight one of these guys. And then when I got to the UFC, I thought I maybe missed it, but I didn't mind because it was there. So
yeah,
then when I came back out and I seen Jimmy re-signed, I was like, he's going to be my guy. Like, he's going to be my favor. Um, yeah, and then it's funny. I wish I said this on air, but I knew, or someone, I didn't say I knew, but someone asked me what's your ideal way of winning this fight, and I said he's going to quit in the corner between the fourth and the fifth. And like I have said this to multiple people, and like it's one of them things. Believe me if you want, or don't believe me, I don't mind, because I
yeah.
knew I said it, and that was my ideal way of winning the fight. I wanted people, to leave at the end of the fourth round knowing, oh, race is just wrapped up. Let's get down the road early. So to make him quit was pretty fun at the time. But like I knew like people don't understand. Like I bring a pressure and I hit so hard, and it's
Yeah.
people like yeah people don't really realize until they realize. I think that's kind of my message.
That's a pretty good like weapon to have though, isn't it, for your opponents? I'd much rather they didn't know who they were going in there against.
For sure. And I think they all come into the fight with the same mentality of like, oh, the other guys just didn't feel it or something. But like, when it's happened with 13 people, it's time to start realizing that it's very much a real thing.
It's just I really do feel like I felt like you were ready when you went to the UFC before, but I look at those, particularly like the last two performances, and no, I include Alex in that as well. The last three performances, and just think you seem on another level to the Rhys that
Yeah.
went to the UFC last time.
Yeah, like and at the time, like I said I was ready, and at the time I thought I was ready,
Yeah,
but coming out now, like 3 years down the line, a lot of mature and a lot. I wouldn't say maturing or growing up, but I see things a lot different. Like now I'm ready. Now I'm a UFC level athlete to go in there and really perform. Like not just to be there. Like I have like I seen someone actually yesterday, and they said, "Oh, it's a great accomplishment to say you fought some of them people." And I said to them, "There's no accomplishment in being there with these people. There's no accomplishment in getting to the UFC until you win there and make a
yeah,
run and make a career, like, and knockout reels and stuff like that. Like that's accomplishment for me." So now I'm the level who can do that. Before I wasn't. I was the level that could have stayed there if I had the right fights. Where
yeah.
now I'm the level where people are gonna like get my name in their inbox and be like, not too sure about this one. That's the fighter I am. If you're fighting me, that's what you're in for.
Yeah, it gives me chills even just talking about people
Mm.
getting your name in their inbox. Like, so let's talk about the first fight back in the UFC Paris. It's oh my God, it's literally a couple of weeks away. What do you think Ange Loosa felt when he got your name in his inbox?
Yeah, you know what? He probably didn't know who I was too much. I would say, maybe not that familiar unless, his teammates might have been. But I'd say he's done his research, and I think one thing, I always think, what will other people think when they get my name, and it's, you go to my record, you see a kid that was in there a few years ago, fought who he fought, came out, done what he's done, 13 finishes, 9 knockouts, like. It's, if anything you can take from my record, it's like this kid's going to be determined. He's going to be relentless. He's going to come to finish every single time, and you know, yeah, I'd say he knows he's in for a fight. That's for sure.
Hmm. You're still really young, but you've got so much experience. I always think you're like the youngest veteran of the the sport
Yeah.
that I know, and you've got more experience than him. I know he's got 2 UFC fights as well, and he's been on Contenders, but, like, I just think the people that you've fought in over your career, not even just recently, like, that you've been fighting for years and years, I just
Mhm.
think is gonna put you in such good stead in there.
Like, this is my 19th professional fight. Like a lot of big fights. Like anybody that knows me from fight number 5, which was for a European title, they've all been big since then. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of big night experience. People do look at me as young, and but I fought some great guys, and all the stuff that I've went through, and fight wise been through, like it's all going to stand up to me in this night. And there's not much that phases me, like there's really not. Like I want to be fighting the big names. I want to be fighting the
Yeah.
guys where people have you totally wrote off. Like that's what I want. So, the bigger the stakes, the bigger the name, the harder fight to win is the better fight for me.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about the pressure many times before, and I never see anyone who looks more relaxed on a
Yeah.
walkout. Like you look like you could be strolling into Tesco's to pick up a pint of milk.
Yeah, I think like I think for me it's like pressure is maybe perceived wrong for a lot of people. Like I find like there's a pressure to if you have to clean your training gear, there's a pressure to do that in time, so you don't do the right thing. Like, what I mean?
Mm,
Pressure is like, I don't use, like, fighting isn't pressure because I'm willingly doing it. I'm choosing to do it. Like, to fight in 20,000 people in the Accor Arena in Paris is something that I've dreamed of since I was, no, maybe not that exact arena, but to fight in a crowd of 20,000 people is something I've dreamed of since I was 15, 16.
Mm.
So why would I get to this stage and then be like, oh, you know what? This is actually really uncomfortable. I don't know if I want it. Like
Yeah.
it's just like it's just not what it is. Like I do understand what people mean about the pressure, but like it's just I just love it too much.
Yeah. And okay, you might not have dreamed of this exact arena, but it was always the UFC for you. Like you've always spoken, you've always had that kind of like blinkered
Hmm.
UFC's the goal. And you must have had so many offers in the last couple of years from so many other promotions that are brilliant promotions, but your dream has always been UFC, hasn't it?
Yeah, like, and it got to the stage, when obviously we beat Jimmy and there was no immediate call.
Mm.
But it was a live or die by the sword. It was literally was. It's like I would have just went and done one more if I had to, and if it didn't come then, I would have went and done one more until like that is what it was until the day UFC said either yes or no. That was
Yeah.
it. Like and if UFC said no, I don't even know what I would have done. I haven't even thought about that because I knew it was coming. But yeah, I very much was do or die, and I just like it's whenever like if you walk into a group of people and say, "I fight for X promotion," oh, and they're like, "Oh, is that a big promotion?" Where if you walk in and say, "Oh, I fight in the UFC," they're like, "No, you don't actually." You know what I mean? Until like
Yeah.
that's how big the promotion is. Like so, that's the like since I was 16 and I was staying up late at night to watch Norman Park fight in Vegas. I said I want a piece of that for me. So yeah, that's it. Simple.
I love it so much, and I think they're very lucky that you hung around and waited for them to come to their senses and sign you again. I can't wait for them to see what you've got in store for them this
Mm.
time. I
Yeah,
know you've already spoken to a lot. You're probably so sick of telling the story about the phone call from Graham, the famous phone calls from Graham that everybody knows about the world over. But for anyone who hasn't seen you tell it already, do you mind telling it again? Are you sick
of
of
course not.
telling it?
No, no, of course not. How can you be so annoyed at people wanting to hear good stuff? No, so like people always say to me for a start, like, "Oh, sure, if Graham voice or if Graham gives you a video call, surely you know what it is." But it's
Yeah,
not the case because like Graham's the manager, so like video call is quite a frequent thing. So we kind of just we were actually it was actually the week Jack Della Maddalena got a pull out. So we were talking about that all week and what would happen or what could happen, and that was fine. And then I got home on the Monday, and it was really late. It was like 10:30 here, so I just had dinner after training, and Graham said, "Oh, I have some questions about gym equipment because he kits out a place in California, which
hmm,
wasn't strange because we had the gym in at home." So I said, "Yeah, it's like if I'm of any help, I'll try." So he gave me a video call and he goes, I just want to bend your head on a few things. I was like, cool, fire away. If I can help, I will. Um, and then he goes, are you free September 2nd? And I was like, oh, yes. I was like, you're very sneaky. But absolutely, yeah. So he didn't wait about too long or didn't have me in too much suspense. So it was literally just, are you free September 2nd? I was like, yes. And he was like, we had a moment like where like very much like you've done it, like he's like everything you've said, you played the patient game. Like Graham, let me tell you one thing about Graham. He's very good at giving you like a congratulations kind of speech.
yeah,
He's a good speaker, and he hit me in the feels for sure. Like because he just said you've played the long game, you took the fights nobody wanted, you finished them, and now it's time to go get what you deserve. And I put a lot of trust in Graham too, so I had a thank you for him. Like I know he's been bending the UFC's ear for a long time about me to get back. So it's I have a lot of respect for Graham, and he was persistent when maybe other managers would have been like, let's go do other things.
I do think that's so true. Like you've taken a lot of risky fights, and you've done a lot of you have done things really the hard way, and that's what I love about your fight style when you're in there. Like you don't mind taking a punch to give two, or like and but just also the way your career's been, you could have just sat out, and that's no criticism to people who
Of
do
course.
play it that way, because I understand why. Every time you get back in there, there's a chance, especially when you're fighting these top guys. Some of the people, the last two that you fought, they could easily be tougher than your first competition in the UFC. So
Mhm.
every time you're going again, you're taking a risk. But I really believed you when you said, that I would have fought again. I would have fought again until they signed me.
Well, funny, I was saying to Graham, like, do we have options of fighting maybe Stanton at middleweight or Darren Stewart, like them kind of people. Like I was looking at options, like for real, looking at options, not like just kind of flirting with them. So yeah, or I even said if Fleminas wins, maybe me and him go. So like I am not scared to risk it all, on the line, because the way I look at it is if I'm meant to be there, then ain't nobody gonna stop me on the European circuit anyway. So let's just keep beating them and making enough noise. But the UFC realized, they had this card. They must have had a welterweight. Maybe they needed to lose a match. They said, "Who's the welterweight we need?" And they knew where to come. So
What do you think of him as a matchup,
yeah, like
Luther?
he's very good. He's durable. He's explosive, athletic. He's physically very like imposing, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
he's a big athlete. But I think when you really break down, this is a martial arts fight. I'm 6'3", he's 5'10". The reach plays a massive part.
Mm.
He's durable. I'm very, very durable. Um, I'm a finisher. He's never been finished. Like I love this fight. It's everything
Yeah.
I need. Um, but like I just believe at this minute in this headspace I am. Like I don't think until I get to the top 10 of the UFC that people are going to slow me down, and that's really it. Like, you said there about my approach. Sometimes I take a shot to give two, and I'm very much in the process now, and you've seen it in the Jimmy fight and bits of the Justin until I did take damage. I'm very much changing my approach to a matured version of myself.
Yeah.
And like this fight, like I want to come out here unscathed, untouched, untested. My
Yeah.
goal is to come out of this fight and people say that guy's not the level of Rhys. That's my exact goal. If people leave there and think, the guy never should have been in the cage with Rhys, then that's a good night's work. But he is tough and durable. But I know I have the skills to put him away.
Oh my God, it's so exciting. I can't believe it's just a couple of weeks away. So you do look like you've been sparring recently, Reece. When,
Yeah.
when's the last heavy sparring session? How does the rest of camp look now?
Yeah, so we spar every Sunday. So normally the time I do these interviews, which is normally on Sundays, it's always a new mark or new something. So you know what, fight camps, like we're still hot and heavy here. Like it's what, we're 3 weeks out yesterday, so we have another good 2 solid weeks. Two real good pushing weeks, and then we go to Paris on Tuesday, a fight week. But we'll be training there. This isn't like this isn't a 10 week process. This is just
Yeah.
martial arts lifestyle, training every day. We'll fight on the Saturday. You'll maybe take the Sunday off, and then back to the lifestyle. And that's the thing for me. Like I have no attachment to this whole you're back. Let's spend 12 weeks getting ready for the comeback. It's not. I'm just doing what I've always done, and the last 3 years of my career, I've never ever ever progressed as fast as I have, and it's because the whole mindset's different, I suppose. It's just I'm here for the love of the game rather than to reach a certain point. It's when you're doing things that I love, you're a dangerous man. So
That's very true, very true. But just promise me that you'll stay healthy and injury free all the way to September 2nd.
touch wood, yeah. You know what? It's like these things are so out of our control, but it'll take unless my legs falling off or my arms falling off, I'll be there anyway.
And Kaylin's on the card now as well. Mega exciting that we've got another Irish fighter.
Yeah.
Obviously, Shauna had her debut at UFC London. That didn't go her way, but she's going to be back as well. How exciting is it to be part of? I don't really think of it as a second Irish wave, just because like more of you are in the UFC now. I think because I follow Irish fighters a lot, and the Irish gyms, like, you guys have never gone anywhere
Yeah.
to be the second wave. But how good does it feel to have him on the card and know that, you know, we keep saying it, but the phone call's got to come for Paul Hughes as well any minute.
Yeah, like, I mean, first of all, for Paul, like it's inevitable. It's coming soon. We all know. So it's just for him. It's just when it comes, not if.
Yeah,
And then this whole Irish thing, as you said, like it's not really a second wave because like look at the level. You have three Cage Warriors, Irish champions. You have Shauna, who is so decorated and everything she's won. Like this wave is like proper world level. I'm not saying it wasn't before, but it's just different this time.
yeah,
It's so like yeah, and to be in the nicest way possible, I believe, one of the men at the front of that, as you
mm,
said, a young vet. Obviously, Connor's Connor and Ian's doing unbelievable. But we're all a force in our own right. So it's good to see the Don there. He's a character. He's funny. And I look forward to celebrating with him in Paris.
yeah. It's going to be amazing, and you never know. Like, it must have been really hard. Well, it must be really hard for Paul, as happy as he'll be for the rest of you, just people talking about it constantly, when he must be wondering when it's coming. And then to have Morgan on the card, which obviously makes sense because it's in Paris and he's French with a big fan base, but it's somebody that you've beaten. It's got to be a tough one to swallow.
It's difficult, and it is challenging. And like I don't know how much Paul's getting asked, but let me tell you, anybody I have a conversation with about me going back to the UFC, it's followed by, and what about Paul? And
It's
like,
really hard not to.
I'm like, yeah, oh, totally. And like, I'm the same. Like, I get it. Like, Paul's my teammate. Like, he's like a brother. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, I want him there too. So his head must hear it all the time. But
yeah,
one thing about Paul Hughes is one of the realest people. Like Paul was one of the first people I rung after getting the call, and I am telling you, he gave me like a Graham a 10-minute motivational speech down that
yeah,
phone. But like how nobody's done what I've done, and I said something like, "Oh sure, whatever," and he goes, "No, don't you dare take this moment away," and all. And Paul couldn't be happier for anyone.
yeah,
Like and that will stand by you. There's a lot of shady people in this world, and your close circle sometimes isn't really as close as you think. But
mhm,
like, let me tell you, Paul Hughes is a real one, and he'll get what he deserves, and he knows it too, and we all know. And
yeah. It's just hard waiting for
it
it
is
to
hard.
come, and it has been too long. But we know the UFC take their own sweet time. We've heard him as a cornerman as well. Like, even the people who don't know him as well as you know him, I think. And everybody who speaks about him in interviews says exactly what you've said. Like, he's delighted for everyone else, but it's still, you know, when am I going to get my phone call, kind of independently from that?
Yeah, of course. Because even like I remember when I wasn't signed and I heard Justin was going back to the Contender Series. Like even I was a bit like, well, how does that work? Because he could technically end up back in there before I did, but I beat him, and he
Mm.
beat more. So Paul beat Morgan, and so it's normal thoughts, and Paul has them thoughts like any of us would have, but when it's his own people and it's his own people around him, ain't nobody happier.
Yeah, and the weird thing about Contenders, which I didn't realize until you told me, was that if you've been in the UFC, you can't go back to Contenders, which I find really strange. Like, I think that that's a really odd rule, because I thought that when when Cage Warriors went to Wales, I thought, oh my god, that you've been re-signed to the UFC. They're gonna make Oban fight somebody for the vacant title. And then when he was off to Contenders, I was thinking the same thing. Like, how does this work?
Yeah, it was really hectic, really weird, and the whole I actually seen a stat the other day that 30% of the active UFC roster came through Contender. 30%,
Oh my gosh! Wow.
which is a real statistic. So, I think it kind of makes me a bit more proud again that
Yeah.
I get in again off just a straight contract. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things happening in MMA, but I mean, I think the message for anybody is to stay the long game.
Yeah. And do you know what? Watching this season of Tough as well, it just proves that people who've been cut from the UFC, look how well they're doing against
Yeah,
prospects, those prospects probably would be coming through contenders if they weren't on Tough. And the
yeah.
people who've been cut from the UFC have been kind of wiping the floor with them so far. And it just shows how much more. I don't know. I don't know whether the UFC cut people too quickly or they make it too difficult to get back. But
Well, it is, it is that sport where it's like if you're not hot at the moment, then you're not needed right now. And but that's the hard part for a fighter is, you take any fighter who's spent 12 years getting to the UFC, go in there, has two fights, loses, gets told to go win more fight. Like that's a hard route back. Like, and
yeah,
and you have people around you being like, oh sure, would you not just go get paid or do this or do that? And it's, you know, like there's not many people that can like really dig down and be like, you know what, no, I'm gonna still go for this. I know I'm good
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
But yeah, like yeah, it's a hard sport.
And to be clear, I'm absolutely delighted for both Oban and Justin. It
Yeah,
just seems
likewise.
quite strange in my head the way that, like,
And like even like Owen, I've had conversations with him and all. He gets it too. Like we all get it, but like nobody's gonna miss out on that opportunity. It's like I would never like imagine Owen got offered the contender series and goes, oh well, has Reese been sorted?
yeah, it doesn't seem fair on me. So
After like again, it's dog eat dog, and it's everybody looks after themselves first, and everything will take care of itself. But you'll never argue with a man that finishes fights. So that's me, and we always get what we want. So
yeah, no, I'm so, so happy for you. Like, you've literally put in more work and done it so spectacularly and quietly and respectfully, and just you're just pure class, like, all the way through. I just to your opponents in the cage, and then you just put on performances like that. I think now is your time. As I said, I thought you were ready before, but when I think what this Rhys McKee would do if you were matched up against Rhys McKee that first went to the
oh,
UFC.
different. Different, and like, people don't even like, again, I'm very detached to that first stint, but like people don't even realize like I was not training. I did not have like, I had a gym that we trained twice a week. Like I had COVID for 2 weeks, a week out from the fight. Like it's going to be very different. It's going to be very different. That's all I can say. Mhm.
I can't wait. I'm so pleased that I've got my ticket. I'm going to be there cheering you on. That was another thing that was just so gutting about the first time around. There was obviously nobody in the arena, like, so, or in the building, so pretty much. So how's it going to be to have fans there?
Yeah, unbelievable. Like I never thought like I need a crowd, and I still stand by I don't need a crowd. But like when you're fighting outside a crowd, then you go back to having fans. It's you realize that this is a fan sport. So like I'm relishing to feel the UFC event, like to see it, to breathe it, to smell it, what I mean, all that stuff. Like it's going to be amazing. Like, and the walkout will be nice, but it's down to business. Once we get there,
Yeah,
once I hit Paris and fight week, it is game mode on. It's this is no tourist attraction. I'm there to put an absolute domination in this guy and leave with a bag full of cash. So
yeah.
that's the name of my game. 50 grand is what I'm after.
I yeah, I honestly think the atmosphere in there is going to be unreal. I wasn't going to Paris originally, and I thought I'd have no trouble getting an individual ticket. Like, there must be a single somewhere, and it was all sold out. And anyway, managed to get one now, but I'd kind of forgotten that MMA hasn't been legal in France for that long. This is
Nope.
only the second time the UFC's been there, I think. Like,
Second
these
one, yeah.
people were just desperate to come and watch. Like, I just think it's going to be an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah, well, like, what a treat for them because if you watch the one from last year, like it's absolutely bananas, and with the same Cyril Gans on the main event again, and a lot of French fighters are there, so I expect that place to be noisy and loud and all of the above.
Amazing. Oh, I just cannot wait, Reese. Just thank you so much for talking to me. I couldn't be any more happy for you. It's so thoroughly well deserved and overdue. And I can't wait to see you put on the performance that you want UFC fans who don't know Skeletor yet to see.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Thank you so much for the time. You know, you always have time for me, so I'll always have time for you. And for the rest of the world, they're about to know what we all know. So time to show.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you so much. I will see you in Paris.
Yes, I'll see you in Paris. Thank you.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of camp and
Thank you.
have a good one.
Perfect.
Thank you.